Good evening. I don't even know I think we're on day 5. I can look at the calendar and tell you that it should be day 5. But this says day 6, so maybe we're on day 6. Day 6 of the Advent calendar. Thus far, we've done, I'm not going to go through the list of everything, but today's video is going to be dressing this little girl. Let's see if we can get the camera to take her. I'm good in this light, but she's not so good in this light. So dressing up our snow person. We've already got one that I've done. So this is an alternative outfit if you make just one, or an additional outfit if you're going to make 2. The first item, oh, and I brought my little scissors in to clip off these little tails. We just arrived back in Portland from Tucson. I felt pretty safe the whole way. We wore our masks. We limited our contact with people, as I've said before. There we go. My tails have been removed. I was in a hotel room last night blocking this, but it came out good. So this is, see the little lace? It almost looks a little tulipy, I think, but it fits her nicely. And this pattern is included in the comments below, so you can knit this little pattern. It's a cast on 4, and you don't have to do it stripy. I made a second one that has yet to be blocked. Don't despair when it looks a little rough, because here is a second one unblocked. I'm holding it open with my fingers, but this is just out of a single color. So testing your pattern for you, because you know that's an idea. But that is her little shawl, and obviously the reason is this, to get it around her neck. She has a pretty big neck, but here's how her shawl looks on her. There's her little shawl. And then the second item is a crocheted beret, crochet beret. I have my ebony crochet hook. I do love, it's interesting because I am a metal knitting needle person, die hard. I never want to knit on wood. I can't tell you how many times I've tried and I just get irritated. But for some reason, I like metal crochet hooks, but wooden, there's something about wooden crochet hooks that just feel nice in my hand, and they help me not be a tight crocheter, which is interesting because I'm a loose knitter and I'm a tight crocheter, and that doesn't jive in my brain how it should be. But the crochet instructions are also in the comments below, but I'm also going to crochet for you as I say this for you while we talk. So I am not a magic loop person. You can use a magic loop if you like. I am knitting fingering weight yarn on fingering weight yarn. This is the Darnie in the baby blue. It's Donegal tweed, but it's in a fingering weight. And then using a G hook. So it's a little bit bigger hook than you might be used to for using on fingering weight yarn. Chain 4 or 3 or 4 depending on how loose you are, and then join with a slip stitch. And then we are going to put 12 double crochets into the ring, which is the start of any circular item or hat. And it's interesting because the instructions I'm about to give you are exactly the same instructions that you would get for a hat to fit you. You build a circle, you crochet 12 rings in the 12 double crochets or 12 stitches into the center of your circle. And then the next round, you do 2 into each stitch that you've done on the row below. And then, oh, sorry, I'm itchy. And then you make 2 stitches into the next one, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, all the way around the circle. And then for the doll size head, that's it, you're done. And then we turn for the beret. But for a human head, clearly we need something bigger. So it's 2 around, 2, 1, 2, 1 into each space. And I'll talk about the chain spaces because I do most of my work in the chain space. There has to be a good reason why I don't. And, well, like for example, this, I go into a circle here. I don't put these stitches into a chain space. But when I'm working on anything outside of the center, I work in the chain space that is on top of the stitch of the row below. And the reason I do that is most crochet patterns, you work in between stitches. And so one row, say if one row has 10 stitches, the next row will have 9. 10, 9, 10, 9, 10, 9, because you lose a stitch when you go into the spaces in between. I prefer to work in the chain space above the stitch because that means each of my rows have the same number of stitches. I also like to work in the chain space because I feel like it just makes my work look a little neater or tidier. I like the way it looks. So that's why I choose to do that. Now, and I'm crocheting here. I know it's hard to see because I'm crocheting in my optimal view, not my view for you, not your optimal view. But so working with a little bit bigger crochet hook does make it feel a little more fumbly. If I were working on an E or an F with this, I wouldn't be dropping this loop of yarn nearly as often. So I'm pushing the yarn or the hook to its limits on size as far as this is concerned. All right, so I've done 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13, done one extra. So we have 12 double crochets into the ring. And I like that hole, I don't mind it at all, so I leave that. And then slip stitch into the chain space. And this is what I mean by a chain space. Let me put this up here. Right there on the top of your stitches is what looks like a little chain stitch right there. And I push my hook right between those two, between the work in the circle and that little space. That's called a chain space. So I'm going to push my hook right there. You can see, let me see if I can get this up close enough. See how I've just pushed my, under those two stitches. And that's what I term a chain space. And that is what I do most of my crochet stitches through, is into the chain space. And in my instructions, it says all work except one other nice noted is through the chain space of the row below. The other thing that I do is I chain for the first stitch. And I try to include that in all my instructions, but sometimes one gets sloppy and misses that, skips it. I think it's in this one. But most crochet patterns chain for the first stitch in the group because the nature of a stitch is to go from the top down and you build this up. If I had started the stitch from down at the base, it'd be tilted and wonky. So we do a chain to build up to the height where then we can do these stitches that come from the top. All right, this is 2 into the next chain space, and then I go into the next one and do 2. And then into the next chain space, and this should leave me with 24 stitches because I've doubled what I just did on the row below. I get this crochet hook. See how pretty it is? There's something so delicate about crochet hooks. These are from Lacis. These are ebony crochet hooks. And they're a reproduction, as I understand it, of a historical crochet hook. I don't know if you're into historical stuff. I rather am. I do costuming and stuff, as well as knitting and crocheting. So I kind of like to, well, I like to find actual old things. But when I can't get the real deal, sometimes I get reproduction things. I know I do have quite the collection, but they're smaller sizes. I have quite a collection of like bone crochet hooks that are quite old. And then of course steel ones. Those you can get quite old and find fairly often in places. Okay. And I'll show you as we come around the corner what this looks like. Oh, I forgot to put its second partner in. One of the upsides of crocheting is that it's pretty easy to rip out your work. When you make a mistake in knitting, it's a little scary because you're pulling live stitches off of a needle and they can go running. And it's the nature of working in a row versus working off of a single pivot point. The other thing that crochet is an advantage to crochet is that you have more control about the direction you're crocheting. Because you're off of one pivot point, I can go in, out, around, up, down, in any direction I want at any given time. So I can pivot on a dime. Whereas knitting, you have to work in a line. 3D things are much easier to do with crochet than they are with knitting. Not impossible. You can do a lot with knitting, clearly, like Arnie and Carlos's balls, sphere. That's sort of a fine example of what's possible, but it's much easier to work in your mind, definitely. All right, let me look here. I think that's the last one. I'm gonna join, and I'll show you what it looks like. There, come on. I tend to chain a little tighter, and that's joining is taxing this big crochet hook a little bit. Feel free to downsize. You may have to put an extra row in. So see, that's the back. Let's show you the front. See how it just looks a little tidier each round when you work in the chain space? And that's why I use chain spaces, just because I like that look. Otherwise, it would have been spliced in between those arms or those bars in the row below, and I like that distinct circles. All right, so round 2. We have one more round to do for the top of our hat for the doll. And again, chain 3, and then 2 in the first stitch, in the first chain space. 2. So I do the chain, and then I do a second stitch into the same chain space, or right next door. That's what it is. And then 1 in the chain space after that. Just 1. And then 2 in the one after that. So we have 24, and now we're going to increase by 12. So that is 36. So we will have 36 stitches in all for the top or the crown of the hat. That is if I don't make a mistake and leave one out. I do know I did have a hat already created, and somehow it got misplaced in our mad drive from California today to home in Hillsborough, Portland. We arrived at 8:30. Then we discovered that my car had died, the battery. And so we had to jump it, and then we had to move the car. So it took us a little while to get in the house. I was hoping to get home more like 7, but it always takes longer than you think it's going to take. Yeah. But now we're here, at least, hopefully, knock on wood, that we don't get locked in. But through the month, and then we'll head back down to the warmth of Arizona for the rest of the winter and into the spring, I hope. So we have 2, 1, another 2. So it's going to be interesting. So far, the YouTube channel is very quiet. Nobody knows we're here. Nobody's been paying attention. I'm hoping at some point that takes off. I've been spreading the Instagram word and trying to get people to notice that this YouTube channel exists. If you like it at all, please subscribe and ring that little bell down there, because ring the bell down below. It keeps people. It gets the YouTube. I guess there are YouTube algorithms that help you get more audience. And I know I've just fallen into YouTube during this period of time, during the COVID era. And I don't know, I was late to the party, because I know my kids and my grandkids and my husband has been watching YouTube for a very long time. But I was late to the party. I was like, I don't get it. They're irritating. I don't know how you can stand it, that noise. And then I finally found the quieter side of YouTube. And like the Arnie and Carlos and the Last Homely House, and the costumers, Bernadette Banner, Cat's Costumery. I watch many of the cat costuming people, because that kind of exploded this year, I think. And I enjoyed it. Oh, I also watch research, because my previous career was as a math teacher, and I have a PhD in math ed, so I train teachers, or for a long period of time, years and years, I train teachers to teach math, how to better teach math, or different ways of teaching math. I'm not going to say better, because their ways were good too. It's just different ways. And I also worked at the community college teaching undergrad students math class, different levels of math anyway. And I also did research. So I did all that stuff before I went here. And I still like to read and watch on YouTube the researchers. So, for example, when the COVID thing hit, I dived headlong into trying to understand it. What are the doctors saying? What are the researchers saying? And so I've also amassed a whole list of like the Journal of American Medical Association's journal online, the San Francisco Round. So there's a San Francisco one. I've looked at, there was a group of anesthesiologists early on that around the world that would do YouTube meetings and talk about treatment. It was very interesting. All right, so top of the beret is right here. That's it, just a circle. And I would carry on. If I were going to make this adult sized, I did 2 1 2 1 2 1 into each chain space. The next one would be 2 1 1 2 1 1 2 1 1 into each chain space. And then 2 and then 3 ones, 1 1 1 2 1 1 1 2 1 1 1 into each chain space. And you just keep going with the number of 1 spaces increasing by 1 every round until this is big enough for your head, or big enough for your big doll's head, or big enough for something else. This happens to be big enough for the snowman. And all I did to figure out if it was big enough was lay it on her head and say, yeah, that's about right. That looks good. I want it to be a little bigger than her head. So I did that. Now, my next round, single crochet, just because I want to give some body to the fold over of the beret. So we will chain 2, and then single crochet 1 in every space. And what that does, that single crochet now turns the sides on this. So it will go straight down like that. And if I kept going, I would get a tube down the bottom. I'm not going to keep going. I'm going to do some reductions in the one after that. So I've chained 2. That's my first chain space. And then single crochet around these 36 stitches that I now have in here. So have you guys decorated your houses yet? I know that's on my list. I listed off on my drive today because I have most of what I'm going to do for these 25 days figured out, but I did list off sort of the days that I wrote them down, and then I've listed off what to do on some of the days I hadn't figured out. And I think I just have 1 day left where I haven't figured it out. 1 day. And I don't know if you have ideas. You could totally put them in the comments. I have thought about embroidery on cards. Embroidery on cards. I haven't done that. Do some embroidered cards. I have some old vintage cards that I picked up. And there's this group online. Everything's online, right? There's this group that takes old vintage ads and things like that and embellishes them. They also take photographs and embellishes them. And I've been meaning to do it because I embroidery. I know my way around an embroidery needle, but I haven't done that yet. And I think, I don't know where they are. I think they're up here somewhere. We're in my sewing room, by the way, and I'm not going to scan you around. But if you see behind me, there's my bulletin board and my whiteboard that kind of keeps track of things I'm doing. Oh, look, a whole bunch of boxes. We cleaned out storage right before we left for Arizona. So it was pretty much get this stuff cleaned out, throw them in the room, and then we'll sort it out later. I think later has come. Although now that I don't think any of the family is coming for Christmas, it'll just be 2 or 3 of us that, COVID, we can't really, they're telling you not to do it. We, might not have to clean. I was going to have to clean because my daughter and her husband and the 2 kids were going to come and stay for a week, but we're a little nervous about that. I did not commit either way at this point. I want to see what continues to happen in the next couple of weeks. But it's sad because we've never spent Christmas together, and this year, like, she had to put in for this vacation last year, and she said, okay, Mom, I'm coming to your house for Christmas, be ready. And then here we are. All right, so see how it's curling around? Here is the outside. There, it's already curled around because when you single crochet 1 into, I'm trying to get this so you can see it. Single crochet 1, it tips around. And then we'll join. Now the next row, because I want this to more than tip around, I want it to go in and become flat on the bottom. I'm going to decrease 3 around. And then I'm going to decrease 3 more around that. And it varies. I could have decreased 4, I could have decreased more, but the having a number like 36 makes it easy to do it 3 times. And then it's also another one is a good multiple of 3. So I just went with that and observed to see if it worked, and it worked great. So I will crochet 11, and then I'm going to decrease 1, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So still single crochet. These last 3 rows are all single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, counting, it's very important, 10, 11. Now, so here's my 11. Now, I used to just skip the stitch and go into the next one, and that would be a skip 1, right? But there is a better way that hides your work, and that is to go, I'm gonna do the move, is to go in and then out through 2 stitches. Go in the stitch that you normally would put your stitch into, and then out to the next chain space, and then do your single crochet through that. And that reduces it, but it also snugs it up so that you don't have a hole. And you'd think I'd been crocheting for years before I learned this. Years and years and years. Never learned it, never learned it. And then I had, actually, one of my students who has become a family friend. She's an avid amigurumi crocheter. She showed that to me, and I was just like, holy mackerel, where have you been all my life? I didn't have any idea that I could save myself holes like that by just doing that simple move. But, you know, that's the nature of fiber arts is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that, you know, you learn stuff even now. And people innovate stuff. 2 more. And honestly, if you make a mistake, that's the beauty of crochet is there's a lot of fudgeability in crochet. All right, I'm going to do another decrease. So pushing into a stitch and then out the other side of that stitch. So I'm going through 2 chain spaces essentially, and that shrinks it. That was my second decrease, and then my third one will be right at the end, so I don't have to count. But my list, lots of cooking. We've got, because I feel so bad that we're not going to have Christmas here, and I had in my head figured out that I was going to do a bunch of baking, that I decided to make care packages for each of my grandkids so that they can at least have the cookies themselves. I think I should have done my decrease back one, so let's go back here. There, decrease right there. There, so I've done 3 decreases, and I'll show you how much further, oops, splits. Just about did a single crochet in there instead of the slip. There, now see how much it's come through just by decreasing 3. And I'm going to decrease 3 more stitches in this round. So I've gone from 36 to 30. So this time instead of every 11, I'm going to do 10. I'm going to crochet 10. So this is my first stitch, my 2, chain 2. Then 1, 2, 3. Lots of math in crochet and knitting. Have you noticed that? And you can avoid it if you don't want to do it. But when you're like me, and I was a math teacher, I do like it. It's very symmetrical and exciting, and there's all kinds of number games you can play in your head. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9, 10. And then skip 1. So I'm going to go into the next chain space and out the one after that and just put a single crochet in that. Sort of a knitting around the post situation is what you're doing. But boy, it works. It pulls it in really nicely and makes it look good. So I like it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm very excited to be at home because we have fast internet here. Not in Arizona at all, but I think we may have solved our problem. I hope we have. We just before we left, my husband David found a it's not a satellite. He calls it point-to-point satellite service. So not wired, but not satellite either. That has much better track record with speed than the one we currently have. And I don't understand the internet very much because I have somebody in the house and I don't really need to pay attention because he provides. But the upload speed, which is what we need when we upload a video, is 3 megabits per second. And it has taken up to 9 hours to upload our videos. So I'm pretty happy that we may have found a faster internet. Oop, I had to do one more decrease here. Almost skipped it. We want the final turn of our beret to be turny. There we go. There, and then join through the chain. Ooh, come on. There. And there's our beret. I'm going to break this off. So I need to hide the ends, and I did block this, but all I did is get it warm. Donegal tweed, Darnie or otherwise, has blooms so beautifully when you get it wet. So it is worth soaking this stuff with a little bit of soap if you want to, or just in hot water. As hot as the tap will do, not boiling. Just as hot as the tap will do. And then laying it flat. I lay this flat. So I let it fold in and I turned it into a circle. Because, you know, a beret looks great as a circle. So see, there's the front and there's the back. It's got a ring around the back. And on my little girl, so here's her shawl. I do need to find her. My husband thought that I should put on, David, thought that I should give her a little teeny mini pin. So I might find a little teeny miniature rhinestone pin. Or wouldn't a teeny tiny Christmas button be cute? And then there's her beret. Here, let's tuck this thread in so we don't have to look at it. Here's her little beret. There. Get it up close. There she is. And I think I put her up on Instagram today with her before I lost her hat that I had made yesterday. There she is. So her, and I'll put on her partner, my guy, which was yesterday's video. Yesterday I taught you how to make his hat. And I'm going to try and turn this away and see if I can help this light a little bit. There. So there they are. Our little snow people, Christmas snow people. Let's put her over here out of the light a little bit. There they are. All right, day 6 is a wrap. I'm going to get this uploaded, and I hope you enjoy it. Remember, in the information below is the patterns for both of the shawl and the hat. I put in links to things that I think might help you complete these projects. I have a store, so for the store. But when I have things that I don't carry in the store that I'm using, I will definitely link for those as well. And then, for example, I'm going to be making some cookies here where we got dates, medjool dates from California, and I will put a link to where we found those dates so that you can get them too. Definitely click the subscribe and ring the bell if you can. It would help us a lot. See you tomorrow.